I'm pretty sure that I've talked about this before. When I first decided that I was going to give the Army a try, give the military a try, just because I needed to make sure that my future was secure. I needed to make sure that I had something, at least on the back burner, as far as going to school, because I had, even though I was probably the most clever, the smartest person in school, I did not do anything that was representative of that for my 11th and 12th grade year. My junior and senior year, yeah, I was hardly at school, and when I was at school, I wasn't in class. I just was not living up to my full potential, and I was bored, and I was in deep need of therapy. So my cousin and my best friend, both like brothers to me, when I said I was going to go, make sure, we can go make this money. They're paying bonuses for the militaries. We can do it for a couple years and get out and do what we want to do. They was like, yeah, we're going to go take the test with you. I passed the test with flying colors. Of course I did. I mean, it's me. My cousin barely passed, barely. And then my other best friend did not pass at all. I don't even know if he got the points from the test for filling out his name correctly. He might have misspelled his name. I don't know. Probably didn't. I'm kidding. No, at this particular part, what I'm about to say, I know it would be easy for people to know me who think that I would throw my ex-wife under the bus. And that's not the case at all. I don't wish her any ill will or any strife in this area. When I asked my cousin and my best friend, what was their scores and, what was we going to do? What was our plan? They didn't want to talk about it. I almost had to chase them down to talk about it. They went out of their way to avoid what was a difficult conversation for them. They saw it as a failure and they didn't want to talk about it. And they didn't want me to talk about it. And I just think that, especially when you're in a position like that, a lot of strife can be avoided if you'll have the conversation that you don't want to have. But there's no rest for the wicked. Hello, Governor. This is Rekkai Steed, nupefromdaville. Let's jump right into it. The Acolyte, Season 1, Episode 5. Listen, I know people have been coming out the woodwork with the hate for this series since it began. And some of what they say is warranted. Some of what they say is not all just vitriol and hate for no reason. But after this episode, if you still hating, you're not really a Star Wars fan anyway. Because the first 23 or so minutes of this, where they finally gave us space wizards and laser swords, they delivered. They gave us some stuff in Star Wars battles that I have not seen. And you have to remember, you have to keep in context that this is pre to the prequels. So there's certain things in here that would affect, if they say or if they do it, it affects Star Wars canon. That part. But at the same token, for anyone to think that what we have seen so far is the totality, the sum totality of all the Star Wars in a galaxy, a universe as vast in all the different worlds, then you are just kidding yourself, and you're far more stupid than we should even talk about.
Let him cook.
There are plenty of stories, and God bless the legends and the expanding universe of Star Wars stories. But there's a reason that those things aren't canon, for whatever reason. And God bless the great directors and writers, Dave Filoni and the John Favreau's and that, who are coming along and taking some of the stuff out of expanding universe and incorporating in the canon. But we're on a whole new path now. And a lot of the choices that will be made here in the Acolyte will contribute to what is canon. So it does not take away from Anakin being Space Jesus. It does not take away from many of the things that we know. The main gripe is, how could Ki-Adi-Mundi be in these scenes? You know, he wasn't for 40 years later. I don't know, because the people act like they have, you know, his little species of, you know, that they got his birth certificate. Stop. You know, it's one thing to retcon where you completely change something and make something that was something no longer mean something. That's not what we have here. When the Jedis that the High Council said there have been no Sith for 1,000 years. First of all, they could have lied. They might know, but saying there have been and y'all should have been worried all this time would cause a panic, because we know our government, whether local or federal, they do that to us all the time. In order not to cause a panic, a public disturbance, we're not going to quite tell you the truth. It's what government does. And at this point, the High Council, the Jedi, they are government. 2, maybe they don't know, because Master Vernastra said that we shouldn't bother the High Council with this, because the first thing they need to do is they need to tell the Senate. So let's handle it here. Let's handle it local. And I don't know how many movies or TV shows you have where people have that same sentiment. We'll handle this on our own. No point to bother them. And either it really does mean that, or a cover-up is in effect. I don't know which one. But it's clear from what we're getting is that the Jedis have done some things that are not quite ethical on Brendok. We don't know yet, but there's a story that has not been told yet, and I'm just tired. I'm ready for it to be told. Peter Bromberg said that when we avoid difficult conversations, we trade short-term discomfort for long-term dysfunction. There is something to be said about that. In this episode, all I could see was from the end of the last episode when May finally figured out, I don't need to do anything that my master says. I got into this for revenge. They killed my whole family. They killed my sister, my twin. I'm gonna get them all back. And she made this deal with the master. She decided she was gonna go against that deal. She was gonna betray the master because she has seen her sister. Her sister's alive. And listen, I'm gonna go turn myself in to Master Kelnaka, and he'll take me to the Jedi. And the master, he'll never get here in time to even know that I betrayed him. I'm going to be with the Jedi, and, you know, whatever they do to me, but I'll be with my sister. But lo and behold, if you've seen this episode, then you know now who the master is and how he felt about that. And he took it out with a great fury and furious vengeance, or however that saying goes. It's my Samuel L. Jackson from Pulp Fiction. You know, difficult conversations are almost never about getting the facts right. They are conflicting perceptions, interpretations, and values. People almost never change without first feeling understood. And a lot of times that's why people avoid these difficult conversations, because they feel like the person that they're about to have this conversation with, they've already made it up in their mind that I'm not going to be understood, and the entire time I'm not actually listening to what they're saying. I'm hearing what they say only for rebuttal. And it's hard to make headway. It's hard to make progress when that is what your mind goes to. In my life, I've had a number of times with a number of different people that meant something to me and didn't mean anything to me at all, or I've had to have difficult conversations. Now, when it's someone who doesn't mean something to you at all, it's not hard to have a difficult conversation. A lot of times you can go away from that being like, I said what I said, and how you take it, that's on you. But when it's someone who means something to you, and especially if you're trying to preserve the relationship, whatever it may be, whether it's familial, friendly, intimate, romantic, then that's a harder conversation to have. Because sometimes you have to measure your words, and that may be harder for someone who is blunt. I used to think that I was blunt, and what you see is what you get. And I have seen through a number of different interactions with different people that maybe I'm not as blunt as I thought. because depending on who you are, may depend on how I speak to you and what I say and how I say it. And when someone means something to you, that should be how you have a conversation with them. That doesn't mean that you shy away from the truth. That doesn't mean that you don't say what needs to be said. But if you take other people's feelings into regard, that you should temper what you say with a bit of humility. And I think in my younger life, I didn't have that. It was a whole lot of I said what I said. Looking at things a little bit differently now that I've got a little bit more vintage on me. You know, when you have a difficult conversation, putting in the work matters. Hard work matters. One of the reasons that people would never tell you that marriage is one of the toughest institutions in this world. Because a lot of people see the glitz and glamour. They think about the pageantry of the wedding, the fulfillment, the desire that goes into the honeymoon. But that's icing. Once you get into the real cake, work. And sometimes couples have a hard time rising to the challenge of marriage, or even to the failure. And not so much in the marriage itself, but and this goes for relationships as well, in each other, in yourself. There are many conversations that I could have had that were difficult, and some that I have now avoid, not because I want to come to a new place of understanding, but just because my peace means everything to me. And if you approach me with the attitude, not that you want to have a difficult conversation so that we can come together on one accord and move forward in an amicable manner, but if you just want to sow strife into my life, I don't have the time. I can't judge someone by their past history because we all change. And if you think that people don't evolve and don't change, there's something wrong with you. People are like that. You know, there's people out there that know how to trigger me, and I'm sure that I probably know how to trigger them. I'm just really looking for peace. I'm going to leave you with this. The most valuable thing that you can get out of discourse with any person in your life is feedback. Now, take that with a grain of salt, because you have to be cognizant of where's the feedback coming from. Is it coming from someone who truly wants what is best for you? Or is it coming from someone who could care less and has an axe to grind, or just want their little 2 cents to be heard? You have to decide what that is. But don't avoid the difficult conversation. A weight will be lifted. And you can press on about your day, about your life. Whatever. Make better choices. This is Rekkai Steed, nupefromdaville. Go into the description and click on the link where you can see the reaction between Syntell and myself this particular episode. It was far better than what the haters and the vitriol that's coming from the Star Wars community. They're so toxic right now. It saddens me. Leave a comment. Share this episode. It's not so much about the Acolyte itself, but about what I pulled from the Acolyte. And if you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button. I got great stuff. Doctor Who, Acolyte, Bridgerton, movies, you name it. It's great stuff coming down the pipe. As you know, it's all about this. It's definitely about this.